This band? I like this band. I wrote it down so I don't forget who they are. Oh, I remember. Fucking Slap! We're back, Metal Horror Madness, and we're here with a legend, with an icon. He's worked with everybody. Cradle of Filth, Mayhem Imperial. He's been all over the map. He's made deals with Satan. Satan's made deals with him, and he's out there conquering the metal scene worldwide, everywhere, bringing the heat, bringing the thunder, bringing those evil sounds and riffs that you crave, you can't live without. This guy's a legend. We ain't talking Frankenstein. We ain't talking Dracula. We're talking Ghul. Ghul, how we doing, brother?
Great. Yeah, that's quite an intro. Thank you.
Thanks. I got a lot of energy. I don't know what to do with it most of the time, so I bring people on here and I get a little wacky, and they tolerate it, which is nice.
Yeah, and well, look forward to tolerating you there.
Thank you very much. I like to have, anyone that's on here, my first question I really like to ask is, what got you into music, and then what got you into metal? And were you into music first and then metal, or did you, immediately found metal when you were younger?
Okay, so it's pretty straightforward answers to both those questions. What got me into music originally was film. When I was very, very, very young, I was very aware of John Williams, essentially. Anything that he scored, I loved it. And I was very aware of the extreme importance of the music and how powerful it was in, the Star Wars films, in the Indiana Jones films, basically anything he touches. But I was just very aware of the emotive power of music and how it's almost a kind of magic, you can change people's entire state of being with it. And of course, I wasn't articulating it quite like that when I was 5 years old, but I was somewhere in there, I was aware of its potency. And so that kind of led me into wondering about music. I didn't get into being creatively involved in music for a long time after, but I loved it, and I used to listen to those soundtracks a lot when I was young.
Right.
Still do now, in fact. And then metal came along. I heard my brother was listening to lots of extreme bands, also bands like Metallica, Motorhead, but Emperor, Enslaved, that kind of stuff, Cradle of Filth. And I sort of spotted something in that music, specifically the extreme stuff, resonated with me because it had a vaguely cinematic sense to it, or an atmosphere that was comparable to some of the more darker elements of cinematic music. And then that just kind of drew me in, and then it just went from there. And then I started to actually get interested in playing the guitar, and then I started to discover more, let's say, more straightforward guitar-oriented stuff. I got into the extreme stuff with the keyboards and that kind of sound, that atmospheric sound first.
Yep.
And then I went back, and then I got more into Slayer, Motorhead, Metallica. I started to discover more interest about the guitar itself, and so that was pretty much the trajectory.
Nice, and it's always interesting to hear where that first influence comes from. And I get what you're saying. In some of these extreme bands, and especially something like Emperor, I think of big theatrical, grandiose, universe-bending things happening. I love that band and connect with them so much, right? And you get that. You find these melodies in a lot of the extreme music, and that's something I couldn't do when I was young. Like I'm a massive super Slayer fan. I'm out of control with Slayer. I scream it all the time. I was just in Milwaukee causing a scene, dropping fucking Slayers a million times with the followers, and I love them so much. But the first time I heard them, I couldn't connect to it. It was so aggressive. Like I couldn't find. Where like I'll hear a song like even Blood Red now, and I can almost dance to it. Like I can feel the vibe in that song. But my first listen, it just sounded like aggressive, loud noise. So, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, absolutely. And that was the same for me initially with the extreme stuff. It was like I knew there was something in there that I could grasp, but there was a lot about it I found extremely challenging, and I kind of pushed myself into sort of not forced myself to like it, but I forced myself to engage with the challenge of understanding why this sound is good, is musical, and eventually it just, of course, it opens up like it does. But I mean, we've seen that entire thing happen on a societal level many times over with music. I mean, think about a band like Slipknot. When they came along, screamy vocals were not on the radio. They weren't. And then suddenly they were after that point. And now I think a lot of people are quite comfortable with aggressive vocals. It's not that strange for us. Go back to, you can go back 100 years and you can find stuff like the Rite of Spring, freaking everyone out when that came out first. People, like I say, this has happened on a societal level many times over. It's an unfamiliar sound. It's hard to like. Gradually, you break the barriers of it and you start to understand it, and then it becomes familiar, and then you can engage with it. I suppose it's not just music. I suppose it's the same with cinema, art, everything else. It's just I'm not really capable of articulating those art forms, or understanding them enough to be able to explain the process. But with music, it's very clear. For me, I see very clearly how the stages of how it happens. You grab one little thing, then you familiarize yourself with unfamiliar tones and unfamiliar sounds and timbres and stuff, and then it becomes enjoyable or not. You don't always get into every type of music, but yeah, it's some music, I suppose, is more challenging than others to grasp. I guess it depends what you're used to.
It's so true, and that's why I try not to put down bands or genres like that. I can't stand a lot of that stuff and the hatred, because it's like, just because I don't get it doesn't mean someone else isn't getting it. There'll be things that they can groove to that I can't.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think you get to a certain age where and some people get there younger than others, of course, but I think you get to a certain point where you just don't have the time or the energy to worry about stuff that you don't enjoy, or to try to convince other people not to enjoy the stuff they enjoy,
It's true. It's such a growth, because if I go back to 17, I was just one of those, if it isn't extreme metal, it sucks. I don't want to hear anything. And now I sit there and listen to Poison, and I'll some glam stuff, and then I'll listen to Cannibal Corpse, and it just seems natural.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're winning in that situation, because you're taking more pleasure from existence. The more things you can enjoy in the world, the more enjoyable the world is. So.
It's so true, right? And I'm one of those people, I'm like, if you don't like something, just don't watch it. Don't listen to it. Don't show the hatred towards it, though. That's ridiculous. It takes a lot, as you know.
Generally, yeah, and I think generally that the outright vocal disapproval of something almost always has some kind of internal reasoning behind it. It's not really about the thing. It's about something about you. Maybe it's that you feel insecure because you don't understand it, or it's you wish you'd done that with your life, or it could be a million things. I mean, there are some things that just grate on you. That's just one of those things. But I think those things, like you said, just don't watch them, don't listen to them, whatever. But to actively go out and pour hatred on something, it seems like a very odd use of a person's energy and time.
Such a waste of energy. And I even saw just at this festival, the amount of people that aren't at the festival, and they'll be messaging people, why aren't you seeing that band? Why aren't you seeing this band? And I'm like, buy a ticket and come over here. Like, these other people, they don't have an interest. Well, this band's so much bigger or better. And it's like, that's just your opinion. And you've got that grounded for sure.
I mean, positive energy onto something is great and everything. But the moment it turns around and it becomes, getting on someone because they like something you don't, or whatever, or something because it's not particularly fashionable at that moment in time, or whatever, that's like elementary school behavior. There's no, sure. I don't know how people have room for that in past the age of about 10 years old.
It's so true. And then, you've got a good grasp on all this. When did you say, like, I need to be making music? I need to learn to do this. I need to have a creative outlet. And you've done it with, three bands with very, very good reputations. You've been very blessed in that sense. You've been with some solid acts,
Yeah, I've been busy. I mean, I've done, of course, currently and for a long time, I've been with Mayhem since it's got to be 20. I've been in the industry just over 22 years now, 21 years. Wow. I've been with Mayhem more than half of that.
Yeah.
So like 12, 13, maybe almost 14 years with Mayhem. In that time, I've also worked with Tormentor, with Shining, obviously with Cradle beforehand, and then I've had like a few of my own projects. I have a band called Veile now, which is like a horror metal band. I should send you a link to that. Didn't think of that.
Please.
You
Please do that, because I want to check it out, and I'll promote it too. I like to make hype videos. So
cool. And then I have like my own synth project, which is just kind of for fun, Art Complex. That's a nice outlet, is something different. But yeah, I've been very fortunate. There's been lots of opportunities around, and I was in a position to be able to take those opportunities. I think that's one of the most important things in life, is to just try to kind of keep yourself at all times relatively trained to grab opportunities if they come along. Figure out what you want, and then try to position yourself in a way that you both will hear when those opportunities appear, and also will have the skill set to capitalize on.
Nice. And how do you feel when you join a band that's already there? How does that feel? Is there a nervousness? Is it like, how am I going to fit in with these guys? Are we going to gel correctly? How have your experiences been with that?
For the most part, it's been fine. Of course, it's every situation is unique, and I suppose to a degree, it's always been okay because I've always known people within the bands already. It's not like going in totally cold.
True.
But yeah, I mean, for sure, it's that can be quite challenging, and especially when you're very, very, very new. Right. You are aware that you're entering a entire ecosphere, that has its own set of reference points and sort of unspoken rules and internal politics and stuff like that. So of course that side of things is it's something that you have to be able to deal with people a little bit, which isn't one of my strongest skills actually. But luckily, when it's about music, when it comes down to music, if there's a crossover in your musical souls, then usually you'll find ground personally as well that that you can walk together.
Right. So, all right, definitely just depends on you. Like you said, your situation, when you know the people, makes it much easier. Then you're learning how to adapt even with them when you get in there, right? And I think what you said to me... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go.
What really stuck with me was talking about the opportunity. I think a lot of people don't prepare themselves for opportunities. They self-doubt. The things come up, they kind of make excuses, or... The other thing, like you said, you've got to be ready. You've got to be sharp. You got to be one of the best out there, because no one's just going to tap you on the shoulder. And I see this so much with bands and creators where they get so frustrated. Like, well, why isn't anyone reaching out? And I'm like, you got to pick up the phone. You've got to network with people. You've got to go meet people in person. It's uncomfortable. You're going to find out most people are accessible, right? And they will talk to you, but they're not going to seek you out of nowhere. I mean,
no, you're right, and that is the hardest part of the industry. For me, and probably for most creative people, the reason that you get into something like music is because you like being in your own bubble. You're probably not a person that likes to socialize enormously, or right. You probably enjoy your own space a lot, and so it is one of the most challenging things. And you're absolutely nail on the head when you say that is the most important part. You can be a astonishingly average musician with really good contacts and be a lot more successful than an insanely virtuosic musician with no contact. It's so important that you speak to people, you get to know people, you can't expect for them to know all about what you do and how good you are if you don't promote a little. Let people know that you play and that you're interested in getting involved in something, and eventually one of these things will appear, probably, hopefully. But if you don't get out there and do that, then absolutely, like you said, the chances of someone just tapping you on the shoulder and it can happen, but it's extremely unlikely.
Yeah, and I even saw that when I was just at the festival, where I was talking to some of these followers, and I never hear them going like, "I'm with my band and this and that." They were lucky that I'm this way. I just like grabbed them and I was like, "Why aren't you telling me you have a band? You're talking to somebody that has an outlet that could get the word out." I'm like, you got to just say it. I didn't want. I'm like, there's no, I didn't want it. You're not offending me. I go, if I listen to it and don't like it, I just won't promote it. I won't badmouth it. I'm not going to do anything negative. But I go, the fact, and then I saw another one that did come up to me, and I was like, that's the way to do it. I'm like, you just came in. I'm like, you're very cordial. You're very nice. You just threw it in there to me. And if you don't say that, you're never gonna get a hype video. I'm never gonna find you. I'm like, it's just not gonna happen. So those connections are so big and so important. And just realizing,
that is the for me personally, that is the absolute thing that I am not good at. I'm not good at self-promoting. I'm not good at telling people all about what I do. Like, for example, I mentioned this synth project that I have, the R Complex thing. I mean, I played it to like 4 or 5 people. It's out, it's on Spotify. It's there, but I never promote it. No one even knows it exists because I can't bring myself to do it. It's weird. It's like I love the creative part. I love doing music. But then when it's time to come and actually talk about it and put it out there and go on forums and announce it and do all this stuff, I really can't do that. I mean, I find that extremely difficult, and I think a hell of a lot of musicians do, which is why you should always have someone in the band who doesn't have those social filters and will just go out and about it and do all that stuff for you. Because if you can't do it, you can't force yourself to do it. So just find someone who can do it and get them to do it for you.
It's so true. It's one of those big. You always need a hype person. Like, you need somebody that's going to be out there and definitely get those words out. And when you talk about the synth project and stuff, like that stuff's really in right now in the underground aggressive scene. Like, we're getting into this place that I love, where more and more people like that kind of music. And if you have something like that, you can just, now that we got to know each other, DM me with the link. I love hyping. I love promoting and hyping. It's what I do for fun, man. I get crazy about it. So if you have something like that,
I have a few things I'll send over to you that you might find interesting. And also, I'm gonna be working on those things a bit more. Of course, right this second, the time is entirely taken up with where I am now, working on the new Mayhem, which is it's kind of all consuming at the moment. As it should be.
I can only imagine. And that, I mean, talk about hype. That's going to be some hype, some new Mayhem. That's something that the scene is craving. That name, that's the premier name to be out there.
It's of course, it's a band that doesn't release, we don't release stuff very often.
No.
So it is a bit more of an event, when we do release something than a band who releases kind of once a year or whatever. So, but the flip side of that, of course, is that there's always an enormous amount of pressure to. It's a very strange situation, because on the one hand, we could jam any sort of 45 minutes to an hour's worth of music together, as mid as is possible, and put the Mayhem logo on, and it will sell. We know we can do that, but we don't want. We don't want to do that, and this is the thing that you're sort of you're in this weird place where you're working extremely hard for something, knowing it's absolutely unnecessary from a practical point of view, but from a spiritual point of view, it's extremely necessary, and it's also part of the kind of respect for the legacy and for the fans and stuff that even if you end up with something that everyone hates, at least you did it honestly,
True. And as you know, like, we know the metal fan base. No matter what you do, it'll always be compared to something, from back in the day.
Yeah,
and it's like, what you have to put up with. So
and it's especially true with this band because people have very, very, very strong opinions about this band.
Yes.
And about that only this album is really Mayhem and blah 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 and whatever. And that's fine. You're the consumer at the end of the day. The customer's always right, kind of thing. So what we have to do is just be, like I said, just be sort of honest with it and make sure that we're making what we intend to make and putting 100% of the energy it needs into it,
the respect by the and I saw this even at the festival I was just at, where they did they said SOD. So SOD had Jamie Jasta from Hatebreed on vocals, Dan Locklear, Scotty, and it was crazy. It was unbelievable. It was a top five to hear those songs. I couldn't believe it. I was losing my mind. I was so excited. Everybody there, the mosh pit was like something I've never seen. The whole place was just losing their minds. But of course, then after the thing, you'll see in the comments, this ain't the real band. This is a cash grab. This is all this shit. And you go, guys, and I'm going to make a video about this. It was actually on my mind before we started filming today. every band out there. There's no more bands with all the original members. That there's, Pantera, Metallica, Slayer, Anthrax, Exit. Nobody has original members. And that's perfectly okay. I am more concerned what you just talked about, taking time to put out quality music, respecting the legacy. I think Mayhem has respected that legacy to a T, and I think that's why those of us that really support it, we understand. And I prefer the music to stay out there. That's what I think people lose sight of too. If you're not out there keeping those legacies, people forget quickly. People just start to forget. So it's nice to see everybody still out there bringing these songs and adding new things to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you were saying about the comment sections and stuff is this ties directly back to what we were talking about at the beginning about having the time and energy to go and say something negative just for I mean, why? If you really feel like that, and of course there are people that feel like that, and there's probably bands I can think of where I would would have similar feelings about it. Okay, so then that's fine, but no one else needs to hear about that, especially if they're enjoying it. Like, the only reason you're saying it is because you're sort of jealous they're enjoying it and you're not. So you're not achieving anything by saying that. Those people aren't going to change their minds, and you're not going to feel any better about it. So just don't.
It's so true, and I think that's something we've lost. I think it's something we've lost. I'm old school, right? So we used to just not watch something. We didn't look at it. We didn't care. We didn't think about it.
Yeah, it was easy. Turn the TV over. So there you go. Problem solved.
Turn it, problem solved. And I'll go through that too with my soul. Why do you got to be screaming all the time? Why do you care? Why do you care what I'm doing? I don't give a shit what you're doing. I'm not in your life. People like what I do, and people don't. Yeah. I'm me. I can't change who I am. I don't know.
Yeah, and you can really get swept up in this if you're the type of person who. So I really, really hate social media. I mean, I hate social. Pretty much anything. So and unfortunately, it's so woven into the fabric of pretty much all creative industries now. It's very hard not to be on there at all. I prefer not to be on there at all, but it's a contact point with the audience, which is good. But actually, I was talking with Jan Hellhammer about this earlier. We were having this exact conversation about how we avoid looking at anything, reading reviews, reading comment sections, doing any of this stuff, because it's really hard when you see someone just pouring some sort of negativity onto you or onto the band or onto whatever. Really hard not to engage with it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's really hard because you sort of fundamentally want to. I guess it's just a human instinct that you feel the need to defend yourself all the time, even if the comment is just completely inane, sort of single AQ comment. It's still really hard to let it go. So the best thing is, just for me at least, I think some people are okay with that. Some people can brush it off. For me, I just don't read anything. I don't look at anything, and it's a mentally healthy approach. It
is such good advice. Now I remember talking to a band somewhere. All-female band, and they were like, the stuff we get in the I'm like, I know, just by being in the scene, I know what you get, and all this other shit. Yeah. And I was telling them what you just said. I go, stop looking, just stop reading it. It's not important. It doesn't matter. And another person standing next to me was like, you should have your followers attack them. I'm like, do not, just don't. Then you're giving them what they want. And like you said, I go through this. Like, I try not to just really look at them. Sometimes I'll go in there and play around. Like, most of my stuff is pretty positive, but I always get someone who'll be like, fix your teeth or something. And I'm just like, what are we doing with our lives here? Like, you took a time out of and those things don't bother me, but like, there was a time they did, man. There was a time where I would have been like, I'm going in there. But now I just laugh at it going like, what is wrong with you? Are you a mental patient? Like, what do you give a shit what I look like?
Actually, a really interesting approach with this stuff is it's like, when you have someone come at you with some sort of negativity like that, it works really well in person. If you just sort of pour kindness back on them, you're like, hey, what's the matter, man? Are you all right? Like, not in a patronizing way, but it's so 9 times out of 10 it completely diffuses, and by the end they're sort of apologizing and it's gone. That negativity is gone, and it kind of makes you wonder where it really all comes from. Where all this need to be negative? I suppose it's an out that human beings have the need for I suppose in a way that's why metal, especially extreme metal, is such a popular form of music, because it gives people an outlet for a degree of negativity. It pours it out of you somehow. And I think that, people who have the time and energy to come up to you and just say some stupid shit to you to try and bring you down, oftentimes it really is that there's something going on. And I mean, it's almost always something that's going on with them, not with you. Of course, some people just don't like you or don't like me, and that's totally okay. Actually, people who don't like me, I probably agree with 90% of the reasoning. So, that's okay. But the point is that most of that negativity comes from inside. And if you know that and you approach the situation knowing that, it's amazing how quickly you can diffuse it and sometimes end up, with a new friend. Well, not a new friend, but fewer enemies.
I just had this happen to me because, again, I do these fucking Slayers, and the followers, they know, they make me do them like crazy. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, and Slayer's not even playing. But I just had where Jasta at the pre-show in Milwaukee, he plays Raining Blood at the end. I'm screaming fucking Slayers. Everyone's screaming them. I get up in the pits. I don't even remember getting in the pit. I got like so excited, like mentally blacked out. And I come out of the pit and I'm just grabbing people. I'm yelling Slayers, and everybody's having a good time except one guy. And I heard, he's like, Slayer, Slayer fucking sucks, and blah, 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 blah. So after that, I went up to him, like, I put my arm around him. I'm like, well, why do you have to tell me that? Like, you see, I'm a super fan. Like, what's that getting you out of this? And he's like, oh, and to your point, completely was like, I just don't really like him. I like power metal. I'm like, I love power metal. I'm like, I love wall metal. I go, there's some power metal bands, though, I don't like, but I go, I would never, ever, ever try and bring someone's good time down if they're all enjoying it. I go, you see all of us hyped up. You don't want to bring that kind of vibe to this fest. This is a festival. There's a lot of different preferences, and we became like buddies throughout the 4 days there. And it's okay. I think that's another thing you're letting people know. It's okay to go into those uncomfortable situations. It's easier for me just to be like, fuck that guy, right? So he's a scumbag. I don't need to. What did I accomplish on a human level? Why do I want my energy to get there? I'm like you, where I am so into positive energy. I believe the universe brings it to me, and I just got to find it sometimes where I'm nervous about something, and instead I could be positive.
Now, you say you're like me. I mean, this would be the advice I would give. It wouldn't necessarily be the way I would behave. I know it's the right thing to do, but in the moment, I'm definitely I'm better now for sure. I've calmed down, and I'm a lot more able to sort of swallow down rage and not escalate things nowadays. But I'm still not quite there yet. Like the way you just described, that's probably still above my skill level when it comes to diffusing situations. But but the point is, you're absolutely right, and that situation that you were talking about is pretty much that's the golden outcome. And the only way you can get there is by not taking things personally, understanding that person had an alternate reason for being that way to you, and then approaching them and maybe they'd have just told you to fuck off, and that would have been the end of it. Or smash the glass into your face. That can also happen.
Full disclosure, though, I also have had those. It took me a long time to get to this place. I'll still, if the guy was like fuck off, I probably would have gotten tense, to be honest with you. And it's not even with me. It's just like I'm not looking for a fight and shit. I'm just looking to like defend the. I just won't tolerate negativity and aggression towards people that's going to hurt somebody, right? So I do have my breaking point too, where if I've had that at festivals. Someone could be like, "Fucking old guys," and I'll be like, "Fuck you, go fuck yourself." Like I get into attack mode, and then that also diffuses the situation usually too, because they're like, "Oh shit, this guy's a psychopath," So,
I mean, I suppose the point is really that we're always sort of trying to reach that kind of level where we can just kind of, but some people need to be smacked. So it's like, okay, but there still has to be a cutoff point. There has to be a point where you go, this is not okay anymore. I had a situation recently, actually, at one of the shows.
Oh,
very small thing. I was just standing. I was watching the New Skeletal Faces, who were opening for us. Great band, by the way. Great guys.
Nice.
And we, I was watching that thing, and this guy came. I guess he was standing with his friend or something on the rail initially, and he'd gone somewhere else. Anyway, I was standing. Of course, I was sort of wrapped up. I wasn't. No one. I was just there, in the audience. No one was aware of me standing there or whatever. It was not like. Yeah, it was anonymous, and the guy just comes and basically physically moves me out the way and just stands where I was standing. And
Wow.
I kind of for a few seconds I was just standing there. What the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
And then I felt this kind of bubble of the sort of thing coming up.
Yep.
And my guitar tech had happened to be walking by, and he'd sort of standing there, and he tapped me on the shoulder, and I just looked at him, and he kind of just went, like as in it's okay, and he was laughing. He thought it was funny, and that just kind of, and then I realized quickly I played out the entire possible scenarios in my mind, and none of them ended anyway. So I thought, you know what, whatever. I think the guy. I think he was on. I think he dropped some ketamine or maybe MDMA, but he definitely had some personal space things going on, and he was definitely on something. But yeah, I mean, my initial thing was this sort of instinctual rage, and that's a very hard thing to resist once it gets past a certain point of the bubbling.
So, and I think another thing where you're saying it's good to have people around us that can help us see sometimes, like, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, it was lucky. It was very lucky. Yeah. And then I realized that was kind of funny.
It's kind of crazy. I mean, look, it's just the whole thing's fucking funny that here you are in Mayhem, and this guy's just like being disrespectful like that. Just I have it too. I've worked on it with stuff, and even like I'm in the front row and away from the pit, like a second pedal start, and the guy's fucking spin wheel, and I got clocked in the fucking. I could feel my tooth, and I'm like, oh, I'm so tempted to just jump on this motherfucker. And then, like you, I start looking at everything, and I'm like, it's fine. It's okay. It is what it is. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's so fucking drunk,
It's probably, there's a multitude of reasons why we could have got there. And I mean, in England, if you did something like someone in a pub, it's probably going to be a big problem, For me, it's wild someone would do that. It's just wild. But at the same time, I thought, well, actually, it's so weird that there probably is some legitimate reasons behind it. And by the time I'd run all these thought processes, it was like they'd gone. I was like, whatever, okay, let it go. But it's
a lot.
Things like that can. I mean, if I'd glassed the guy and then I'm not allowed back into the States ever again, that would probably not really count as a victory in any metric,
That's what people even tell me sometimes. Like, you don't want to get thrown out of a venue for good, man. Like, you don't want, like, just get in a fight and you're both thrown out. They're not going to give a shit who started what, who did anything. And exactly. The closest thing I had where I had one, I think it was 200 stab wounds. They had the main pit, and then we were all in the back. Like, everyone just standing in the back. And this fucking kid decides, this couple of kids, like, they're going to start a new pit. And I'm like, guys, kind of bullshit, man. Like, these guys are back here. They don't want to be involved in any of this. And he's going, and I notice he's like aiming for the women, and then he starts aiming at me. Like, he's aiming at me, he doesn't get me. And all of a sudden, I feel like the fucking boom, like as hard as he can, right in my shoulder. And I'm like, that's fucking it. I snapped on this motherfucker. I went and grabbed him by his fucking hair and fucking threw him to the fucking ground, dragged him out of the fuck, and this little fucking bastard ran. And I go, you know what? There's sometimes we need to teach lessons. This was an aggressor purposely trying to hurt people, like purposely. Wasn't having fun. Everybody was like thankful I did it. And I try and tell people that too. They're like, don't do what I did. Go get security. If you see that shit happening, security would be more than happy to crack some skulls at those venues. So,
yeah, and one in 100 times you need to do something.
Right.
But 99 other times feel like you need to do it, and you need to understand the difference. And that's kind of, I guess, what it is as you start maturing a little bit, and you've seen situations play out 100 times. You start to realize, okay, this is really not worth getting physical over, or this has to turn physical. And there are quite obvious differences.
I used to have problems with everything. Like, say a cashier was kind of rude to me, or somebody, I would have to say something. I would always be like, "Oh fuck you!" I would always. It's so weird now, and everyone in my network is always watching me, and they're just like, "What's this fucking guy up to right now?" Like, he's being too calm, and I'm like, "I have learned, it is not worth escalating this situation. I don't want that energy out there." I don't know what they're going through that day. Maybe the person's having a horrible day. Maybe they're being abused at home. Maybe they're having financial, whatever's going on.
Exactly.
I'm going to respect that. You know, I'm going to just say, I'll never see you again. It's fine.
Exactly. And that is circling back to how we got here, precisely how to deal with the negative shit on the internet. You know, it's like, okay, there's so many reasons a person can say something vicious about you. There's so many reasons. And the least likely one of those reasons is that he actually feels that way for a legitimate reason and means it. It will be for, like you said, they could be just be having a really shitty day. They might be in a really bad place in their life. You might remind them of someone that they absolutely hate, even if it's just subconsciously. Yeah. There's a thousand ways and a thousand reasons for where that negativity comes from. So it's like, all right, whatever, you know. Yeah. Better put it into something creative, but not everybody has the good fortune of that outlet, you know.
And as you're saying this to me, I like to ask this too all the time is, I'll ask everybody in a band or creators, do you prefer, it sounds like you prefer recording in the studio over going out on tour, but maybe you'll surprise me. I don't know what, you know, I get 50-50 all the time.
No, I really like the creative process when I'm just doing my own thing. Yeah. When you're working in this environment, it's rewarding, but it's extremely taxing psychologically and emotionally. But the going out, the touring, the playing live, that's kind of there's an energy to that which is just not touchable. Right. Any other, you know, it's something incredibly. You know that song, Hellraiser, that Ozzy and Motorhead both did, and then they did the combined version of it. Yeah. So that I think is a really, really great this sort of expression of what I'm talking about. It's just something about that being out there, you know, with the lights and the sound and the chaos and the and everything that goes with it. And you know, touring is a really hard thing to do unless you're at the level where you've got private jets and, you know, good hotel time and several days off in between shows. And even then, it's probably still demanding. But touring is hard, you know. But I complain about it non-stop on the road, and then I miss it when when I'm not on the road. I miss it. Not straight away, but after a month or two of not being out. Yep. You start. You need that. You need the adrenaline. It's an adrenaline fix, basically. It's like nothing else. And I've been doing a lot of where I'm announcing bands on stage now and stuff like that. And I get off there and I feel like king of the. Like, I got off at the last one, and I'm like, for this 656 in Massachusetts Thrashers, they did a great job in Milwaukee, and I jumped off fucking stage, and I was like. They parted the seas when you could see I was like so hyper, and I would just had this energy was like beaming and beaming, and I had it all those days. And you know, and that's another thing I like to ask is I have a real hard time. I come back from an event, I have all these people cheering me on, I have all this fantasy world going on. I'm not worried about real life. I'm not worried about laundry, pets. I'm not worried about anything. And then it's like boom, you're back now, and you have a lot of responsibilities. And I used to just go on like dangerous fucking benders. You know, I'm just going to drink all week. I'm going to keep that high going. I'm going to get this thing crazy. And then that just made it worse for me. Now it's twice as miserable and stuck in a cycle. I've learned to, for me, I just learned to try and put every aspect of Metal Horror Madman to everything I do. Like, bring that energy anywhere I go. If I'm in a store, I start talking to people. If I'm out, I'm getting people hyped for different things. It's what makes me grounded with that. I did better this time than I'd ever done. Like, it was always a shit show when I'd come back, and I'd kind of manifest it on the way back too. You know, like I can't. So you're saying you kind of had a hard time compartmentalizing, is I think what you're saying. Yes. One state of reality to another. Yeah. Well, that's of course touring. If you pretty much anyone who tours regularly will tell you that that's definitely a thing. you come off, this from one completely alternative reality, and then you come back to actual reality, and it's like, oh, I don't have any bread. It's okay,
right? Yeah,
and it's suddenly it's like this crash down. But you, two things there. One thing, you have to try and be a consistent human being through all of those states, and that makes it a lot easier to transition between them.
Okay.
I think one of the problems that especially people that are fresh to touring find is they just become a completely different person when they're on tour. It's
Right.
or a very different version of themselves, and that can lead to all kinds of problems. It leads to some serious substance problems and alcohol problems and all kinds of stuff. So you have to try to keep a little guy somewhere in there working all the control throughout the entire process. And so that's one thing. And the other thing is you just get used to it over constant
just repetition.
constant. Yeah, you gradually get to the point where you just get home and you're like, okay, we're home now. Now it's this. Now we're
nice.
But that takes a long time, and there will always be. There's always going to be. I think you always need at least kind of like 1 or 2 buffer days just to adjust a bit before you try to be real, like a completely normal human being again. You need at least a couple of days to just sort of.
That's what I did this time.
Contextualize yourself back into the real world.
That's what I did this time. Normally, I would just be like, I'm back, and I would just cut everything and stop and go like. You're out. I'm overeating. I'm loading up on all these carbs, and just because I'm just living it up at the time. And then I would come here and be like, I'm gonna cut everything out day one, and every time I would fail. Every time it would get me like manic and crazy. And that's great advice for bands coming up. And what would you say is another for new bands that are touring? What's probably the biggest mistake you see them make, or something they should really focus on?
I think. Probably the biggest mistake you see with newer acts is just too much of a kind of a belief and an addiction to your own hype. Like you cannot look at the situation around you and start defining yourself by that situation. When you're on stage, people are cheering for you, right? You can't define yourself by that, because when you get off stage, the tax officer is not going to be cheering for you. The guy whose car you just slammed into, because you weren't paying attention, they're not going to be cheering for you. The grocery store, the checkout people aren't going to be cheering for you. You aren't that thing. That's not what you are. Right. And the mistake that a lot of those bands, and I probably did the same, to be honest. In fact, I definitely did. You start to believe that you've suddenly elevated to you're now something totally different. You're a different entity. You've become a star or whatever, and that will destroy your career very, very quickly if you don't get a grip on that. It will either destroy your career or it will destroy the relationships within the band completely, because then each member starts believing that they're the reason everything is successful and blah blah blah, and it's you see it all the time. So I think the main thing is, as hard as it is, to just try to remain as grounded as you can. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy your own hype. In the moments where it's appropriate. You're totally entitled to that. You worked hard to get there. You're completely entitled to enjoy it. But just remember that nothing has really changed. Nothing's really changed.
It is so true. And I've seen it too many times. And so, like with Metal Horror Madman, I've only been traveling for about a year, where I'm getting out there and going to and all this stuff. So this is all very new to me. And this was had the festival, everything. Then I get to the airport, and people are starting to recognize me, and they go into different. And I was like, wow, this is like. To your point, I started getting a little of that mania right there, a little of that manic, that the person I was traveling with had to be like, calm down, we got to get you on the flight. Like, relax with everything else. Like, this is all coming to an end, like, any minute. Once this is the last remnants of this whole thing. And I noticed it, and I was like, wow, like, I was more concerned to like, people wanted a picture or they wanted this or that. Then like, I need my flight number. I need to know where I need to go sit. I can't miss like, so I could see where that gets to people. And then I was real good after that of being like, okay, it's done now. Like I have stuff I have to worry about. I got to get home. The flight's going to be delayed, blah, 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 this, that.
Yeah.
But you do see, I even think of like back in the 80s, like famous stories like Kevin DeBrow from Quiet Riot, rest in peace, where he like single-handedly destroyed that band's momentum. They had that Metal Health in 1983. They were so big, and he talks shit about every band, everybody.
Yeah, it's so common though. It happens so much, and yeah, I mean the 80s was. I mean that's a different thing. I mean what I'm talking about is literally it happens to bands who are playing to 100 people a night. So you can imagine what it happened to bands who are filling arenas. You know, and they're 22 years old. You know, that's going to mess with you. So it's and you know, this isn't a normal life. Human beings, we haven't evolved to have these experiences. It's extreme. You know? Right. So you do have to be aware of that, and you just have to stay grounded. I'm not at all saying to not become. It's totally okay for you to become a bit of a caricature and to go over the top and become larger than life and all. You know, that's actually I think a desirable thing for someone who's a performer. But you just have to know when, like you said, when it's done, when the show is done. You know, when you're just you again in a room. You know, are you likable if it's just you and another person sitting in a room together? Have you got anything to say at all? Have you got any, you know, do you have a personality? You know, and I know I'm not going to start naming names, obviously, but I know a good few people who are absolutely entirely dysfunctional because they let this shit go to their heads and never got out of it. You know?
Right. Yeah, I've seen people would be surprised sometimes. And, you know, like I said, I'd rather just say nothing at all. But, like, in the scene, there's one I could really think of, and I'm like, this person's just not the greatest fucking person, like, on any level. But when they see him, it's like, oh, this guy's so fun and, like, goofy and all this shit. I'm like, that's not the fucking case from everything I've seen.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the point is that's all they are, is the thing that everyone sees. Because beneath that is just this sort of rotten core that's got absolutely, you know, there's nothing there anymore. It's
so true. Yeah.
There's that say, I don't know who said it, but it's a great quote. It might have even been Oscar Wilde, about fame being a mask that eats into the face. And I love that quote because it's absolutely the case. You know, when people, what I said about believing your own hope and stuff, the more you do that, the more you believe that you are the thing that the world is presented with when you're out doing your thing. The more you believe that, the more it sort of eats into you, and you actually just become this completely one-dimensional thing. That's the, you know.
You are so right. This is great for people to hear. It's so great because I've tried explaining this and to hear from a veteran of the industry. Like I said, I'm just doing out here for a year. I did all my social media for 4 or 5 years, but I'm finally getting out there, and it's just relating to everything I went through. Because, like, I went to Milwaukee, right? I live out in Massachusetts here in the United States, and I'm like, is this brand going to carry over there? And it was crazy. It was crazy what would happen. And I had a thing where Frozen Soul they were doing their sound check, and I'm walking in the big fucking theater room, and these people see me, they're screaming, they're fucking Slayers, and they were like, they start playing Raining Blood to, like, dick around, and it turns into an eruption. I'm, like, running around, I'm fucking screaming, we're getting crazy, I'm hype, and it was so cool for them, like, because I have mutuals with Sam on like Instagram, so it's so cool to just watch us, like, all in person, playing our characters. And to your point, that's the one thing I always do know is, like, it's a character. In the sense, I'll get done, and then I'm talking to the people, and they'll always say to me, you're so chill in person. We're so surprised. I go, guys, if I really first of all, I'd be the biggest dick of all time. If I'm running around like a wrestler, screaming in everybody's faces and not caring. I want to get to know you guys. I want to get to know why you follow me. I'll have kids say, like, or their mom even, you know, they're so shy and your videos help them with their anxiety and all this. And I would love to hear that. And I'll say to them, if you're in that situation, like, it's okay to message me. You know, I could try and give you some advice if I can or something like that and just lift you up, or just use the videos, like you're saying, to lift yourself up and bring that positive energy. But then I have seen creators that are real dicks, and they don't know how to. They don't know how to break. Like you said, they become that character, and it's so obnoxious, and it's just not healthy for them. It's not healthy for the followers.
So do you think it's a character, or do you think it's a compartment of your character? I mean, is it
number two?
You know what I mean by that?
It's a compartment for sure.
Yeah, because it's what people ask me often, you know, when about being on stage and stuff, and like, what is it exactly? And I feel like I'm not really doing anything. I'm not being a character.
Same.
It's more like I'm just letting very specific aspects of my character take full control for once, you know, to
That's
be
a
in
good way
total
of putting it. Yeah.
putting the rest of it to one side. Yeah, no, it's interesting. But what you were saying about you know, when you find out that stuff that you've done has helped people in some way, or, you know, that's a pretty rewarding aspect of the whole thing that I never anticipated getting into music. You know, that was I suppose getting into music was kind of quite a selfish thing. It was because I just wanted to do it, you know, and I enjoyed it and pleasure from it. Never occurred to me that down the line you would get the opportunity to kind of sometimes I'll get like young people messaging me asking, you know, advice about playing guitar or about being in bands or kind of stuff, and it is pretty. Yeah, I suppose it is, especially for someone as nihilistic as me. It is interesting that I do get quite a kick out of being able to, you know, have some sort of positive impact on someone's life without having to put too much effort into it.
I know it's a weird. It's you just and that's something what you just said is like. And I've had other people say that same thing to me, like, no, that's just a part of who you are. Like when you're the madman, you're bringing that part of you out. It's all intensity all the time. But like, no, you know how to put that back. I guess I've learned more than I thought I did. Where I know to put that part of me back when it needs to be put away, and then it can come out when I need it. Yeah. And it is a weird feeling just by doing what you're doing to hear someone come up and say, you know, that Mayhem's made me happy today. I'm in this negative place or hearing these songs, and you just it's weird because I know I've said that to people, like in my youth when I'd meet bands, like, oh man, like Testament, you don't understand how much it's, and I'm like, hearing it is crazy because to your point, you're just doing what you do, and it's not. Nice.
I have the same thing, you know. I've met a vast majority now of the people who I grew up, sort of. You know, I wouldn't say heroes is maybe the wrong word, but just kind of the people who I just really aspired towards. You know, I've met almost all of them, and I sort of know several of them on a personal level now.
Yeah.
And which is of course it's a massive privilege, but it is strange because I know how that felt. It's strange to think that I'm on the other end of that sometimes as well. You know, that is an odd. Yeah. Something I still can't quite calibrate to understand fully. It's an odd thing, but in a good way.
It's quite an accomplishment. It's quite an accomplishment to know you're out there and you're bringing positivity and energy to people that really and they do need it. They are when they say those things, they are not kidding. And the more I get to know a lot of them, it's like, I mean, our scene, this type of music. A lot of people have a lot of problems. You know, it's very common. It's a place, like you said, with the outlets to get it out, and it's a lot of addictions and a lot of abuse that's gone on, and I think that's why we gel so well when we all meet each other in a sense that like we get each other. We get we're the kind of the outsiders and the things like that. And
yeah, absolutely, and that's why I'm a firm advocate of gatekeeping because. It needs to stay like this to a degree. Now, when I say gatekeeping, I mean it I'm being a little bit flippant with the term, but I do think there needs to be a degree of exclusivity to this scene, not so that everyone in it can feel like they're elite, but so that we never lose that, what you're describing, that immediate ability to kind of recognize someone as a friend or a sort of, or at least an ally in life, you know. And if everyone comes to the scene and it just becomes this whole sort of like a fashion accessory, which is kind of happening here and there. But if that happens on a grand scale, then we're going to lose that immediate sense of community and familiarity that you know. Like when you're walking around a town that you don't know and you see someone in a shirt of a band that you like, there's It's a good feeling. You don't even
Yeah.
you don't have to, just seeing it. It sort of lifts you up in a weird kind of way.
Yep.
So yeah.
No, definitely. And real quick, when we were talking about meeting bands and everything, like that's something where I was one of those guys, like I have horror stories of every time I'd meet somebody. Like I would geek out to the point that it was so bad. Like Pepper Keenan one time was, I went to Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut, and they have this like Wolf's Den place it's called, and they'll put on shows. And I guess it was supposed to be POD. I wasn't even there for a band. And I walk in and I'm like, am I here in Albatross right now? Like, no way. And it's Corrosion doing their sound check. And I'm like, I think if this is like, I don't know, 10 plus years ago. I'm like, if I stand right here, I'm going to be able to meet somebody. So Pepper comes out and I'm like, oh, it's so cringy. Are you Pepper Keenan? He's like, yep. I'm like, can I talk to you? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, here's the riveting conversation. I'm like, I really like your music. I don't mean to bother you. And he's like, it's all okay, man. Like he was so down to earth. And I was like, okay, bye.
Well, I mean, when I was growing up, my one of my main things was Emperor. That was one of my kind of main, and I recognized that there was a degree of familiarity in the approach to the music. It was very musical, and it was clearly inspired by people like Grieg and Wagner, and it was very clear, especially the Anthems album. You can just hear this very obvious hat tipping to some of the sort of late romantic composers, and so of course I've met them many times. We played with them several times, and I mean, obviously, and I would have an incredible amount to talk about musically, because I'm also like very sort of schooled with music academically, but also I've just spent my entire life in various kinds of what they call like high art music. I don't really like the term, but yeah. And so I'd have a ton to talk about, and it would be amazing. But every time I've been around those guys, I've been so shit-faced drunk that I've just presented myself as a complete buffoon.
Oh no! So you've been there.
So, but you know what? I'm okay with that, because whatever, it's fine. You know, it's not, you don't have to treat everyone as a potential business opportunity, and it's. But yeah, I relate, and I've done that to a couple of other important people that I like. Bill Steer as well. I was completely shit-faced drunk last time I saw him. So you know, it happens. And actually, I think it's extremely good, because it keeps that kind of humility and reminds you that you were a fan way before you didn't hear this. You know, right. You were a fan, and that's the kind of thing a fan would do. So.
Yeah. Hey, you're still a fan for life, man. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Last thing is of that topic, and then I will cut it short. But where is he? Alice Cooper there, my first tattoo. I'm an Alice Cooper like super fan. I am a psycho Alice Cooper fan since I'm a kid. Second cassette I ever had was Greatest Hits, the one from like 1973. I can't meet him. Like I had an opportunity to go like to the comic. I can't meet him because I already know I go see him every time I see him. I'm going to go see him Friday again, like for my 38th time or something. I just start crying when he hits the stage. I could think of everywhere in my life where I was, what album came out, and like when he couldn't really, when the scene was kind of down and he wasn't touring bigger places, and the comeback happened. And it's like, I met Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, one time, another hero of mine growing up, and completely made an ass out of myself. Like, I left my autograph at the table. I was like, she literally had to calm me down like a little boy. She was just like, it's all going to be okay. You're going to be fine. And I guess it's just certain people I have that connection with from me. Like, they don't know who I am or care who I am, but like, I know what they've meant to me growing up. And after meeting her, is like, she's the highest I could go with that, because I can't meet him. It's not gonna happen.
I was watching WrestleMania 2 a couple of weeks ago, and I had forgotten the people they pulled in to that, because she was commentating, because that was the one where they had 3 separate locations, and it was all being like Chicago and I think LA and somewhere else. She was one of the commentators, which I thought was a really and then Ozzy turns up for some reason with the British Bulldogs, and then Alice Cooper was that WrestleMania 3?
He brings
Didn't
a
he? I think
boa.
he came with Jake
Yeah.
the Snake. I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jake the
yeah,
Snake. That's right, with the boa constrictor. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
sick.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to SummerSlam in August. I'm really psyched about. Like
Oh,
I love wrestling, I love horror, and I love metal. Those are like my three
yeah,
things.
yeah. Well, wrestling we'll have plenty to talk about for sure. My like anything between about 1983 and about 2003, roughly. That's kind of like my, you
Same.
know,
That's my strong wheelhouse. That's we'll have to do this again and talk wrestling the whole time because there's so much to talk about with that.
absolutely.
Man, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you. I'm a big fan of you, of the band. I'm a big fan of keeping that legacy alive. I don't believe in any of that hater garbage. If people don't believe in what they're doing, don't listen, don't follow. We do. You know you have a rabid fan base of supporters, and it's great to meet you. It's great to see how down to earth, sincere you are. You great advice for some of these young bands that guys follow that. He's not just saying that advice to try and say I know more than you. He's already lived all this shit. He's telling you I've been through all these things.
I've made all those mistakes. I'm still making them all. To trust
Same.
me, you know.
Same. Man, just keep bringing what you bring. We love it. And if you want to let everyone know what's going on, and they know who you are and where to find you, but what other projects? I know you're working on new Mayhem music. Please let us know.
We got new Mayhem going. I've got the Veile project, which I will send you a link to. You can check that out. But
Okay.
we're probably going to do something like that this year. We have. It's one of those bands where we do like a song every 2 years, but eventually we'll have enough to do a set, and then we can take it back. Then and I have our Complex, the synth thing, which I'm going to do some more to. But right now is the new Mayhem album, which is underway. I'm not sure exactly what the release date. I'm not sure if we have anything in stone yet.
Okay.
But the idea is to pretty much get it. You know, we're on the verge of tracking the drums now, at least, so we're getting somewhere.
So sick, yeah. And anything, just hit me up. I love to promote the scene. I live for the scene. It's everything I'm about. I love meeting people. I love promoting it and getting it out there. And especially when you say that synth thing, like I like making a lot of stupid videos where I'll dance and shake my ass or do these little things to music. So I want to hear that too, man. Like I'm a child of the 80s.
I'll do it this evening.
Okay.
This is I mean, the 80s is like that's where I'm from. So you know everything about the 80s